Hello, my YouTube friends. I am recording you a extra little intro to this podcast episode because I stuffed up with my tech, as I sometimes do. It is my nemesis at times, but I recorded audio with no video for this episode and was trying to re-record it, and I was like, you know what? The first take was the best take, so I'm not going to redo it. That just seems like you don't get the best of me. I have to do it again. It's just like lose-lose. So I'm not going to re-record the whole thing, but I did just want to give you the heads up that you are about to have a static screen with just audio. So you won't get to see my animated hands talking you through this episode, but hopefully you will still take away just as much goodness. Static screen, I'll make sure it's pretty. And if you have any questions, you know you can always ask away. All right, I'll be back next week with video on for sure because I've already changed the setting. Thank you for your understanding. Enjoy this episode. So, hey there, friends. How are we doing? We are in, if you're listening to this not too long after it goes live, we are in the final countdown before Christmas. And depending on how you feel about that period of time, that could either be really exciting, really overwhelming, or completely inconsequential. And today I wanted to use this episode 287 of SelfKind, with me, Erica Webb, to talk about some really simple things that you can do to kind of offer yourself the gift of self-kindness and self-love in this period of time, and also give you some updates on what 2025 is going to look like around here. So we're going to flip that, and I'm going to give you the updates first, and then we're going to talk about some tips. And the reason that I thought that I would do this episode like this today is because historically, pretty much my whole life, I have not loved Christmas. It has not been one of my favorite holidays. And I think the more that I consider why that is, I think it's kind of like a high sensitivity thing. I find the rush of it all a bit overwhelming. I find the pressure of, buying good gifts a little bit overwhelming. I find all the peopling a little overwhelming. And so it's just a kind of recipe of things that overall I find a little overwhelming. And so perhaps you have some element of that as well. I have other people in my life who I know absolutely adore this time of year, and so I don't want to make the assumption that everybody finds it tricky, but it certainly has been tricky for me at times, and so I wanted to share some tips. But before that, I thought I would give you a few little updates on what's coming in this space in 2025. 2024 did not unfold the way that I thought it would and the way that I had planned for it to. I'll probably share some more about why that happened in kind of like a wrap-up episode a little bit later this month. But it was one of those years where I had to hit pause on a lot of things because my personal life required it. And so I realized looking back that I never really told you all that much about what I had on offer because it wasn't my main priority. And so anyway, 2025 is shaping up to be a bit of a different year. I mean, never speak too soon, right? But I have things planned and I'm hoping that we get to bring them all to life. So I wanted to let you know what to expect, because if you've been in this space for a little while and you haven't yet worked with me and you've been thinking, I'm just waiting for the right thing, maybe what I'm about to tell you might feel like the right thing. So I'm just going to give you a quick little update. So for those of you who haven't heard me talk about it before, the SelfKind Hub is the way that you can work with me all the time. And so this is my online space for movement, mindful practices, and bringing collectively the practices that I work with my one-on-one counseling clients with into a kind of DIY space. And so it's a space specifically for highly sensitive people, really big library of movement practices to help you navigate an overwhelmed nervous system, help you find more regulation, more ease, help reduce physical tension, and to help support and increase self-compassion and self-kindness. So that is always there and always available for you to join. But at the end of this year, so between Christmas and New Year's, I am going to run a little special invitation, promotion. And I pretty much never do that. So if that's something that you've been thinking about at any point, you might want to stay tuned for that. That will be in that little gap between Christmas and New Year's that I'll be offering that. And the only place I'm going to talk about it is in my newsletter, in my email newsletter. My mouth isn't working. The only place I will talk about it is in my email newsletter. And so you probably won't hear me talk about it on the podcast again, just because timing is going to be tricky. The only place that I'm really going to share about it is on my email newsletter. There's a chance I'll talk about it over on Instagram stories, but I'm not so sure. So if you want to know about that, please make sure that you're on the email newsletter list. Otherwise, you might miss it. So I'll pop a link to that in the show notes. The other two ways that you're going to be able to work with me in 2025 are through one-on-one counseling. That is getting a little fuller at the moment, though. So if you've been thinking, oh, I would love to work with Erica one-on-one at some point, I would recommend inquiring like now or early in the year, because I don't see clients all week. I only have a couple of days a week where I do that. So if you are curious about working with me one-on-one, I have a few spots left, but I have a feeling that they're going to fill up pretty quickly in the new year. And then finally, I am actually going to run Soma Home again in 2025. I had grand plans to run that thing like 3 or 4 times last year, and I don't think I ended up running it at all. And again, I will update you on some of the why next time, but I'm ready to go again. We're going to bring Soma Home back. And I think that it's going to have a little bit of a name change. I think it's going to have a little bit of a facelift of sorts, and I'm super excited to bring that back. My plan is to run it twice. Look at me being somewhat less optimistic, or maybe just a little bit more realistic about how many times I can run it in a year. But it'll probably run twice in 2025, the first time being sometime in February. And that is a program that is designed specifically for highly sensitive people and really designed to help support you to befriend yourself. At its core, that is what it's for. It is to help you find a sense of home within your own skin, to befriend your sensitivity, befriend your body, so that when you are present to yourself, you feel like you're home, not in a battle situation, not in a critical relationship, but somewhere that feels kind, compassionate, loving, and home. So that is coming back in 2025. And again, best place to learn about that and dates and be the first on the list is on my email newsletter. I'll probably run like a 3-day challenge of sorts to lead into that. So stay tuned for that as well, because that will be awesome, even if you don't join the program. And of course, also you can, keep listening to me here on the podcast next year as well. The podcast isn't going anywhere. I will be doing lots more episodes like the ones that you've come to know. I'd also really love to do some more Q&A episodes. So if you have questions, please never hesitate to send them through, because something that I've learned about myself in the last couple of years is that I actually do my best work when I'm responding to something. I dove a little bit into human design. I don't know if you've ever looked at your human design. I can't decide if I think it's like completely amazing or like kind of bizarre, or maybe a combination of both. But anyway, I know even in myself, void of the human design stuff, I know that I do my best work when I'm responding to something. And so I've been trying to figure out how to fold that into how I work more and more. And I found a few little ways to do that. But one of the ways is, of course, to respond to questions, because sometimes we get a little bit stuck in a loop of the things that we know or the ways that we think to say them. And so sometimes when I get asked a question, I'm like, oh, I love the way that brought out like a new little twist on the same information. So please never hesitate. And sometimes I think I've said stuff and it turns out I haven't said anything about it at all. I've just had like a big long conversation with myself in my head. So please ask your questions, because I would love to answer them. We are also going to have probably a lot more episodes with Matt Glover, my friend, and we're going to be doing some work in the highly sensitive person space. So I will be bringing Matt back in, I think, a fair bit in 2025. And if you didn't know, I also have a second podcast with my beautiful friend Anita McLaughlin, and that's called Midlife Unfiltered. And there's 2 seasons already up, and we talk all things midlife as women. Anita is a little older than me, and so she's been through the menopause transition. I am pre-menopausal, and we have all sorts of really wonderful conversations between ourselves and with experts about some of the stuff that we face in midlife as women. And if you haven't listened to that podcast, I recommend joining us over there as well, because that's going to continue through 2025 too. That's a lot, isn't it? But I think that sounds great. I think I think 2025 is shaping up to be a really wonderful year around here in terms of what I do and what I offer. And I, whether we work together, and I know that we're working together because you sign up for something and I see your name come through and we have a conversation, or whether you just keep listening on the other end, you are so welcome here. And I'm honored, honestly, to be in your story at all, right? I love it. I bumped into someone the other day who just made comment about the fact that they really enjoy listening to the podcast, and it just makes my day. It makes my day because I'm just sitting here with my computer and my microphone and my camera, and it's a real treat to know that it's making a difference. So thank you. All right, so let's move on to tips, because Christmas. So you might be listening to this and be like, Christmas is over. This is irrelevant for me now, or irrelevant for me now. But this applies in any situation where you might find yourself feeling overwhelmed. And this isn't going to be new, okay? This is going to be repetition, because repetition is really valuable. And just because we know something doesn't mean we're doing it. So it bears repeating, okay? So, in terms of sort of moving towards or into what has the potential to be an overwhelming experience, keep in mind that we can experience a couple of things at once, right? And so you might be like, I really love Christmas and it's overwhelming. Or it might be just overwhelming, or it might be overwhelming and filled with grief, or, right? So there could be a whole bunch of seemingly competing or contradictory emotions. That's really human. That's really normal. So it might not be one thing devoid of anything else. But if there's overwhelm in there, in the picture at all, then you want to consider some of these tips. My computer just froze. Hopefully that didn't mess up our recording. I will check. So what I want you to consider with this is what gets your overwhelm like ticking, right? Like what is the thing or things in the lead up to that event, and we'll use Christmas as the example, that tends to get your overwhelm going. Now, for me, when I think about this event, there's two main things. One is rushing. I hate rushing so much. It makes me feel all kinds of yuck. It's amazing, though, how often you'll find me rushing. So, different thing. But rushing will make me feel kind of stressed. And so, even something as simple as knowing that the shopping centre is closed. Now, I don't go to the shops every day, but that little bit of information can sometimes be enough for me to be like, do we have everything we need, right? Have a little moment of like, bah, because the thought of being underprepared or having to rush really doesn't sit very well with me. And then the other part is the underpreparedness, which I've already sort of rolled into that. I find that quite overwhelming. And within that is kind of like the expectations that come with gift giving. I find that really hard. I always worry that I haven't done enough or haven't done it right. So they are probably my big triggers around Christmas. So yours might be different. That's okay. I just want to give you examples so that we're kind of all thinking in that world. What I want you to consider is, as you think about what is it that sort of triggers me into overwhelm, map what it feels like in your body. Where do you experience it? Even just talking about it, I can feel it, right? I can feel it starting to kind of like, ooh, creep into my chest. I experience it as almost like trying to levitate up off my chair, a feeling of anxiety or panic sort of starting to rise in my chest, and maybe even a little bit in my throat. So that's the sort of questions that I want you to ask. Like, what do I start to feel? I can feel my shoulders start to tense up around my ears. I feel my belly clench. I notice that I'm squeezing my knees together or clenching my fists. What is it that your body does that sort of triggers to you, oh, I might be tipping into overwhelm? I might be walking the path down to overwhelm, right? Because that is going to be one of the clearest ways that you can go, oh, that might be my signal to pause, okay? Tracking the things that are happening in your body. So once you have that sense, and if you need to pause, as we're talking about this, then certainly pause, but you want to consider, what does it feel like in my body when I start to experience those feelings of overwhelm? Now, it's important to recognize that when we start to feel those feelings of overwhelm, it's a little bit like our nervous system is a smoke detector. And for whatever reason, it's decided the stress that you're starting to feel is a really good reason to set off the smoke alarm, right? And so our job, when we're thinking, okay, it might be time for me to pause, our job is to help clear the smoke so that that fire detector or that smoke detector can stop screaming, right? Which is the feelings of anxiety, the feelings of right, that happen when you are starting to feel overwhelmed. And so when we pause, it's like, have you ever set the fire alarm off with like toast, right? You've been making toast, or maybe you walked away and you put it down one more time and then you forgot, and it started to smoke and the smoke detector went off. And you have to go grab a tea towel or something and wave it up at the smoke detector to clear the smoke. It's kind of what we're doing with our nervous system practices, or with these practices that are intended um, to ease that overwhelm. We're saying it's all good. We're clearing the smoke. It's fine. No fire, right? We're just helping the nervous system to know we're actually okay. And I'm going to just sort of offer 3 simple ways to do it. Like I said earlier, not new ways, not real like sexy kind of crazy things, just really simple practices that, even though we know, we sometimes don't do. And so it's really worth being reminded of them. So here's 3 really simple ways to support your nervous system in those moments to clear the smoke so that you can kind of get out of the overwhelm and get back to what it is that you want to focus on. So the first one is to set a timer. It's my favorite way to do it, because then you're not like wondering, how long has it been? Is it been long enough? Set a timer for 1 or 2 minutes and just breathe. Breathe in for 4 and breathe out for 8. And you can change those numbers, but the idea is to breathe out for a little bit longer than you breathe in. And the reason for that is because the out breath is the breath that is going to engage the more rest and digest part of your nervous system. And so it's going to lower your heart rate overall, lower your blood pressure overall, and just make you feel more calm. So 1 to 2 minutes, breathing in for 4, out for 8, or in for 4, out for 6 works too. Okay. And then when the timer goes off, you can check in and you can be like, how am I doing? How's the smoke? Maybe you do it again, or maybe you just get back to what you were doing, but just a couple of minutes. Second one is to go outside. Set a timer, let's say 3 minutes. Close your eyes and just listen. And the reason I say go outside is because if you live in a house where there's kids or there's people yelling, or there's just like stuff, chaos, hectic stuff going on, then that's not the noise you want to listen to. You want to go outside, see if you can hear some birds, right? There might be some traffic that you can hear. There might be other things, but we're going to go sit outside or stand outside, close your eyes and just listen. Listen for the near noises, listen for the distant noises, listen to the noises that you can hear from your own body, your breath, digestive system, potentially. Listen to the things that you can hear outside of yourself. And the goal here is not to interpret them, right? We're not making up stories about them, but we're just listening. Bird, traffic, sound of the neighbor cooking, right? You get the idea. And when the timer goes off, big breath, back to wherever you need to be. And then the third one is to lay a hand or 2 hands over your belly, over your chest, over your face, over your ears, over your eyes, on your head, anywhere that would feel soothing, and to speak kindly to yourself for 30 seconds. So to remind yourself that you're safe right now in this moment, that even though you're having these feelings of overwhelm, you actually do have enough time, and you have done enough, and you are doing enough. To remind yourself that the pause that you're taking is to honor your needs, to be kind towards your sensitivity, and that that's okay, that you're allowed to need that, you're allowed to want that, and that taking that time is a beautiful gift. And then the 30 seconds are up and you can do it again, or you can, again, go back to whatever it is that you were needing to do. But be curious, have the signs of smoke, right, in your body, have they dissipated somewhat? Have you been able to find a little bit of stability, safety, security by engaging in that short practice. That's the goal. So that's your responsive stuff, right? The stuff that you can do because you're noticing that you're starting to step into overwhelm. You can also do those things, though, as an act of preempting, oh, this could be a stressful day, right? Or this could be a stressful week or moment or event. We can kind of front load a little bit those experiences so that we have reduced the likelihood that that smoke detector is going to go off at the first whiff of smoke, right? Because we've taken some time to kind of down regulate things first. So any of those practices work preemptively as well. But other things that you can do is like decide that for 15 minutes in the morning, you're going to get up and you're going to take a walk before all the other things happen. You might decide that for 5 minutes, you're going to go and do some kitchen yoga or some, roll around on the floor in the living room, do some twists, do some breathing, whatever, to just kind of prime your body to love up on your body first. You might do 3 minutes of breathing before the day starts, or 3 minutes of sitting and listening to the sounds or listening to your own breath. Front loading your day or front loading that activity with something that says, how I feel matters. Nurturing my sensitivity and respecting its needs matters. And so I'm going to do this first. It is incredible how much that can make a difference, because we're seeing ourselves, we're offering ourselves what it is that we actually need, rather than trying to force ourselves to just be how we think we should be, right? Without needing all of this stuff, which leaves us feeling crappy for lots of reasons, but also just very unseen because our needs aren't being respected or even acknowledged. And so it's just this little reminder of like, it's fine. My sensitivity is a good thing and it deserves to be nurtured, not shamed. And so this is me taking the time to remind myself of that and to offer myself that moment of acknowledgement before I move towards perhaps the event or the day, whatever it is that might cause us to experience some overwhelm. So I think that's it. That's really all I wanted to share. I hope those tips have been really helpful and help you have a calmer, more grounded Christmas or whatever celebrations might be going on in your world or whatever events. And I will be back next week. I hope you can join me. Take care.